Millions of people climb these steps every year. They come for the marble. They come for the man seated in stone, gazing out over the reflecting pool as if he's still watching the country he tried to hold together. They come with cameras, with school groups, with quiet reverence, tracing the same worn path up toward those massive columns. They come for the marble. They come for the man seated in stone. Almost none of them know what's underneath. Beneath the floor is a vast, cavernous space, the kind of unglamorous part of a building nobody thinks twice about, containing something that has nothing to do with plumbing or storage. Stick with me, because the real surprise isn't what you'd expect. Think about what this building means. It's not just a monument. It's where Martin Luther King Jr. stood and described a dream, his voice carrying out over that same reflecting pool to a crowd that stretched further than anyone could count. It's where a nation has gathered, again and again, to grieve, to protest, to remember who we are, a place that has absorbed more American emotion than almost any other patch of ground in the country. Abraham Lincoln sits inside, 19 feet of white marble, watching over the National Mall like he's still keeping the country together, his expression carved somewhere between weariness and resolve. This is sacred ground, in the American sense of the word, and almost nobody who visits knows there's a hidden world just beneath their feet, invisible, unremarked upon, sitting silently under all that foot traffic and all that history. So let's go down there. Underneath the Lincoln Memorial, below the floor where millions of shoes have walked, there's a cavernous open space, what historians call the undercroft. Duck through a low door, and the marble hush of the memorial disappears almost instantly. The air turns cool and damp, thick with the smell of wet concrete and old stone. Footsteps stop echoing off polished stone and start splashing through puddles that never quite dry. Somewhere in the dark, water is dripping, slow and steady, like a clock that never stops, marking time in a place where nobody official is keeping track of it. Shine a light upward, and you see them long, pale mineral formations hanging from the ceiling, built drip by drip over 100 years, water working its way down through concrete and stone, mineral by mineral, one slow drop at a time. It looks, for all the world, like a cave, the kind of place you'd expect to find deep underground in some limestone hollow, not tucked beneath one of the most visited monuments in America. But the real surprise wasn't the dripping water or the strange shapes on the ceiling, as eerie and unexpected as they are. It was what the workers left behind, because scattered across those rough concrete walls, down where no tourist was ever meant to look, there are names. Visitors on special tours in the 1970s saw more than concrete columns, they saw handwriting, initials, dates, little marks left by the men who built this place decades before, beginning in the 1910s, when the memorial was still new, and its marble hadn't yet weathered a century of Washington summers. Some of it even looks almost playful, quick sketches, jokes between co-workers, a signature left on the concrete, a small act of humor or pride from men who probably never imagined so many people would see it. Not every drawing has been fully explained, but here's what we do know for certain. Leaving your mark in the hidden places of a great building is an old and very human tradition. Stonemasons, ironworkers, carpenters, for centuries, they've signed the parts of buildings nobody would ever see, tucking their names into the bones of structures meant to outlast them by hundreds of years. A steel beam, a foundation wall, a crawl space under a cathedral, sealed away long before the doors ever opened to the public. It's a quiet way of saying, I was here. I built this too. It's a whisper meant for no one, and somehow, for everyone who comes after. And the men who built the Lincoln Memorial did the exact same thing, in a space they assumed would stay dark and forgotten forever, sealed beneath the weight of the monument above them. That's the emotional core of this story. We talk about the Lincoln Memorial like it appeared out of nothing, pure marble, pure symbolism, pure history, as if it simply rose from the ground fully formed. But someone poured that concrete. Someone hauled that stone up from a quarry in Colorado and set it, piece by piece, far from home, moving mountains of marble across a continent so that a temple to democracy could rise on the banks of the Potomac. The Lincoln statue itself wasn't carved by one hand, either. It was shaped by the Piccirilli brothers, Italian immigrant stonecarvers working out of a studio in New York, bringing sculptor Daniel Chester French's design to life in marble, translating a vision on paper into 19 towering feet of solid stone. Architect Henry Bacon modeled the whole building on a classical Greek temple, a tribute to democracy borrowing from democracy's birthplace, reaching back across centuries, and an ocean to honor the same ideals Lincoln himself had fought for. Every one of these people had names. Most of them we'll never know: the laborers, the stonecutters, the men who mixed concrete and set foundations in the years before the memorial was finished. But down in that hidden chamber, a few of them made sure they wouldn't be completely erased, leaving a trace of themselves in the one place they thought no one would ever look. This space isn't a natural cave. There's no ancient limestone cavern under the National Mall, no geological accident waiting to be discovered. The reason it exists is much more human, and honestly just as impressive. When builders chose this site in the early 1900s, they weren't picking solid ground. They were picking filled land along the muddy Potomac flats, soggy, unstable ground reclaimed from the river decades earlier, land that had been water before it became the foundation for a national monument. You cannot set a 38,000-ton marble temple on top of soft ground and hope for the best. So engineers built 122 deep concrete support piers straight down through the fill until they hit bedrock below, anchoring the entire structure to something solid and permanent beneath all that soft, reclaimed earth. Then they built a second layer of piers and concrete arches to form the base floor, elevated above the unstable ground it was never meant to trust. The space beneath that floor and among those supports, that's your hidden chamber. It's not a cave the builders discovered. It's a void the builders created on purpose, as the price of building something permanent on ground that was never meant to hold it, a hollow space born out of engineering necessity rather than nature. Here's the part that might surprise you most. You can actually see this place for yourself. The National Park Service now offers a ticketed undercroft experience, letting visitors enter a new exhibit space and look through glass into the same hidden chamber where construction crews once worked, beneath the same steady drip of water in the dark. It's not a secret basement you can just wander into. Timed entry tickets are required. But it is real, and it is out there, waiting for people curious enough to ask, curious enough to look past the marble and columns and wonder what's holding it all up. And as America marks its 250th birthday, there's something fitting about more of us looking down, not just up, at the monuments we think we already know, taking a moment to consider the hidden layers beneath our most familiar landmarks. So the next time you see a photograph of the Lincoln Memorial, those white columns, that quiet, seated figure watching over the mall, remember what's holding it up. Not just engineering, not just marble, people. Immigrant stonecarvers in a New York studio, shaping stone with patience and skill. Laborers pouring concrete in the dark, leaving their initials where they thought no one would ever look. A quiet signature meant only for the dark and the damp and whatever came after. Ordinary hands doing extraordinary work so that a monument to Abraham Lincoln and to the democracy he fought to save could stand for 100 years and counting, weathering a century of American history without ever giving way. That's the real story underneath the Lincoln Memorial. Not a cave, not a mystery, just us. The people who built this country, one quiet, unseen mark at a time.